Oh, hey guys, welcome back to Too Far Gone Media. Marc Couture here, and today we're going to discuss something that happened late last night, and it's not good. The NDP and the Liberal government have signed a bilateral agreement to rule the country together and to keep the Liberals in power, or voted in, until 2025. So whatever each side wants to have voted in, they're just going to put on the table and vote for it. And that's going to include something that I don't want to have to pay into because I already pay into it through my insurance, and that's National Dental Plan. Can you imagine that? A National Dental Plan? That'll cost everybody millions, hundreds of millions, maybe even billions. It's dental plan. Like, it's expensive. Anyways, let's check it out. Pierre Poilievre. Okay, he's got a little something to say. We're going to start with him, and then we'll keep going after that. Let's check it out.
Hi everyone, sorry about the poor quality of this video, but I'm traveling from Montreal to Ottawa just as breaking news comes forward of a coalition power pact between the Socialist NDP and the Liberals to keep in control of the government until the year 2025. Obviously, they have agreed to a radical and extreme agenda to expand the power of government by taking away the freedoms of the people, to increase spending and taxes and inflation on the backs of the people, or just inflation as I've described it. The news might seem terrible, but I'm here today with a message of hope, with a strong Conservative leader who knows how to win the debate and the procedural contests on the floor of the House of Commons. We can push back hard against this coalition attack on our freedom and our country. We can mobilize the Canadian people to apply pressure on backbench Liberals and NDPers who are not comfortable with this backroom deal, in order that we may force a non-confidence vote and try to defeat the government and its coalition partner before the 2025 expiry of this deal. I'm the only leader who can launch that effort to mobilize the Canadian people, win the debates and the procedural contests on the floor of the House of Commons, force an eventual non-confidence vote, go to an election and win, as I've always done. I'm undefeated in 7 elections in an Ontario riding. I am a proven fighter, and some things are worth fighting for. So keep the hope alive, and more than that, take action. Sign now the Pierre Poilievre for Prime Minister form, which is in the link. Join the effort. I will be in contact with you about some more practical things you can do to help me fight against this coalition, to put you back in control of your life, and ultimately make Canada the freest country on earth. So my message is, keep the hope. We're going to fight, and we're going to win. I need your help. Sign up now.
Oh boy, that did not sound too good. So that's Pierre Poilievre. I don't know. Is he really the right person? You know? Do we really vote him in? If we do, is he going to be just as bad as Trudeau? I mean, there's some things that I've seen them flip-flop over a little bit here and there. He's saying he's going to stand up for us, but then at the same time, he has somebody in the House of Commons wanting more censorship around the war. I don't want censorship around the war. I want to hear everything. I want to hear the Russian news. I want to hear the Russian propaganda. I want to hear the North American news. I want to hear the North American propaganda. I want to hear the Australian news. I want to hear the Australian propaganda. I will do my homework, and I will come up with my own conclusions. I will not have somebody else determine that for me, because the instant the government wants to control the narrative, no matter what it is, that means there's something very specific they do not want you to be made privy to, and that, I assure you, is what you need to look for. Because as soon as you find that, you notice and start realizing, and you have no choice but to accept the fact that politics are absolute corruption. So let's see what, let's check out, let's look up some more.
Good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I think just to put everything in context, although we have important issues facing the country, I know all of us remain focused on our desire to see peace in Ukraine. And I think even in the midst of the challenges we're going through, we are still very blessed to live in Canada, and our hearts and our focus is on the people in Ukraine and what they're going through. We were planning this morning to come and to announce to Canadians some good news that Conservatives are going to be presenting a motion this morning, and we'll be debating it today, that would see Canadians save a little bit of money at the pumps. We were hoping we could get agreement with the other parties and that we could see a reduction in taxes, just even a temporary GST and tax holiday for Canadians, and we were looking forward to getting some support on that. And we will be talking more about that shortly. My colleagues will be speaking about that. But something broke last night, and it was obviously something very important. We found out last night that the NDP and the Liberals were meeting secretly, and they've cooked up a backroom deal that would see Justin Trudeau get the majority power that he tried desperately to get last fall in the last election, but he failed to get. This deal means that Canadians have woken up to, in essence, an NDP Liberal majority government. And I think we have to let that sink in. This is an NDP Liberal government, and they have the majority. 82% of voters did not vote for a Liberal NDP government, including millions of Liberal voters. These Canadians woke up this morning to the fact that they have been hoodwinked and they've been deceived by their Prime Minister. Now, let me be clear, this is nothing more than a Justin Trudeau power grab. He is desperately clinging to power. His number one goal, as we have seen over the course of the last 6 years, is always to do what's best for him, not to do what's best for Canadians. Now, make no mistake, the NDP are in charge. What does this mean? Well, it means the decimation of Canadian oil and gas and LNG, which we know this more than ever. That means that is really a way to prop up Putin and Russia. When the NDP Liberal government phase out, which means destroy Canadian oil, gas, and LNG, they are helping Russia. And that was one of the top priorities they had, and that Justin Trudeau has agreed to. It means mining, agriculture, fisheries are all next under the extreme policies of the NDP, which are now Liberal policies. It also means $214 billion, just that we know of, in new spending for Canadians. And that's who's going to be spending. That's who's going to be bearing the brunt of the new NDP Liberal government. All of which for Canadians means more debt, more inflation, more jobs lost, more uncertainty, and frankly, more polarization. This is not a good day for Canadians. I'm here to say that we, Conservatives, are still conservative. We have not changed. We are still here to fight for Canadians. And Canadians can count on Conservatives to be consistently conservative. We are the party of less government spending. We are the party of low taxes. We are champions of Canadian natural resources. We are champions for Canadian farmers, for Canadian small businesses, for Canadian workers. We are champions for Canadian families. We are champions for Canadian taxpayers. And we are here to help Canadians save money. Canadians, millions of Canadians this morning, I think, are in need of hope. Canadians are waking up to this NDP Liberal government. They are, many of them, in shock. There is, I'm sure, a lot of despair in the West right now around this decision. And so we are going to spend the next little while reaching out to millions of Canadians, including those who have not voted Conservative, to let them know that we will continue to be their voice here in Ottawa. And we will do everything we can to hold this NDP Liberal government to account, including speaking directly to Liberal MPs who I'm sure did not tell their constituents that they would now be part of an NDP Liberal government. So with that, I'm going to ask my colleagues Ed Fast, Dan Elbis, and Gerard Deltel to come and talk a little bit about our Opposition Day motion, and then we're happy to take questions. Merci.
Okay. Well, I don't know. She seems to really try to sell it off too much. Champions. I don't know if you should call yourself a champion. You're second place, first of all. And second of all, like I said, they kind of flip-flop a little bit here and there. So she says they are conservative and will always be conservative. But they're broken within their own lines as well. Like I said, she wants back her freedoms. Pierre wants back her freedoms. But you got people in the Senate wanting censorship on the war. I want the truth. And nobody's going to give me the truth. I have to find the truth. In order to do that, I have to get it from multiple sources and then evaluate the information myself and see through all the lies. Like, everybody's always trying to hide something. Like they say, the person hated the most is one who tells the truth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep cutting out the sections that go French, because I don't have to explain stuff too much. But we're going to go on to the next little bit she was referring to.
Hi, Ms. Bergen, Stephanie Taylor with the Canadian Press. Conservatives are going to have some opportunities, I suppose, to work with the Liberals if they want over the next 4 years. Do Conservatives support the new dental care program this deal is going to be getting Canadians starting with kids 12 and under?
The NDP Liberal government, which are now telling Canadians this morning, are going to be introducing a national dental program, is something that is going to cost Canadians billions of dollars. Many Canadians already have insurance that their private insurance they're paying for with their employer and have dental coverage. Canadians did not vote for a national dental program, and they certainly did not vote for an NDP Liberal government. So I would tell you that Conservatives will consistently stand up for the taxpayer. We will consistently stand up for good policy that actually provides Canadians with the best options when it comes to dental coverage, pharmacare coverage. We think there certainly are Canadians that need help, and provinces are providing help, and we'd like to see Canadians who are lower income and need that kind of assistance have that assistance. But that was not what Canadians voted for just a few short months ago. They did not vote for an NDP Liberal government that would be spending billions of dollars in new spending.
Do you believe Conservatives are going to be fighting Justin Trudeau as the Liberal leader come the next election?
I have no idea. That will be up to Justin Trudeau to answer. I do know this: we are fighting an NDP Liberal majority government right now.
We're going to David Baxter with Global News. You mentioned trying to reach out to some Liberals who you feel may be unsatisfied with this. Would you be starting with some of the Liberal MPs who stood against the imposition of the Emergencies Act?
I think we'll see. I mean, this is new. We'll have to see how some of these Liberals respond to questions that we pose, questions that their own constituents will have. But I cannot imagine that all Liberals are comfortable with this. There are many Liberals that are, fiscally responsible. There are many millions of Liberal voters, I believe, who are fiscally responsible, that support Canadian natural resources, that support Canadian having investment grow in Canada. There are a lot of Liberals that are coming to me and saying they're very worried about the economic direction under a Justin Trudeau government. I cannot imagine this morning how they are feeling knowing that we now have a Jagmeet Singh led, because he's basically going to be the Deputy Prime Minister. This is a formal written agreement. We now have a NDP Liberal government in charge. So I am fairly certain there are literally millions of Liberal voters, including some Liberal members of Parliament, who have got to be very concerned this morning.
And now, looking at the past election result, approximately 50% of the vote went either the Liberals or the NDP. We see these partnerships show up in other countries where we do have multiple parties making up parliaments. Last time we saw an agreement like this in Canada was within the BC provincial government. There it still seemed like the NDP were very much driving the ship there. What indication is there beyond just like this initial announcement that Jagmeet Singh is going to play such a pivotal role in the future direction over the next 4 years?
I think the announcement we heard this morning is very clear. Justin Trudeau has basically said what I told Canadians I would do 3, 4, 5 months ago in the election. I've changed my mind because I actually want to feel and know that I have a majority power, and so I will do basically anything the NDP asks me to do in order to keep that power. I think that is proof enough, and I mean, we already have seen Trudeau in his policy move further and further to the left. This is a man who wasn't joking when he said he doesn't think about monetary policy. This is a man that was not joking when he says he admires China's basic dictatorship. He admires very left, very extreme ways of governing and governance. And so when he has now formed a formal agreement with the NDP government, with the NDP party, who is now basically the government, he has deceived Canadians. And I think there's got to be a lot of concern, not just with Canadians, but with Liberal voters themselves. What lengths will this man go to cling to power?
Bonjour, Boris Proulx du Devoir. Ma question est principalement pour Monsieur Deltel, though if you want to add something after, that could be great.
Okay.
Ma question est...
So again, there she is trying to like sell off the Conservatives. I don't like that. You're there to answer questions. Just take care of the questions and stop it with the powder puff piece. Like I don't care for that. You're there just to answer questions, give us information, stop repeating how much you love the country and you're going to help us, because so far you haven't done fuck all. So I'm not saying that they're not going to do anything or they can't do anything. Well, right now they can't because the majority is. So pardon my language, but I'm a construction worker and I talk like a dirty ass trucker. Not that the truckers are dirty. Wow, I'm just going to make this worse. Love you guys. So now it's a formal written agreement, and let's make it clear, it will make Jagmeet Singh more or less like the deputy prime minister, because it'll be like a dual thing happening, right? It'll be both the needs of both the parties. Now, I don't know how that is even allowed to happen, because Jagmeet Singh and the NDP were not voted into power. So this is very confusing. I don't understand how they can be allowed to do such a thing, because, I mean, I don't know. Why are they allowed to take over the government like that, but the truckers weren't allowed to walk into Parliament and say, yeah, Videtti, Liberals, we're the government now. So I don't understand how that works. Just the rich can screw over the rich and everybody else is... I don't get it. I just don't get it. Yeah, so that means the both of them together, nothing can be stopped from voting through. So anything the NDP want is going to go through, and anything the Liberals want is going to go through, because it's put to a vote and they will always have majority, unless they have people within their own caucus that will decide otherwise or vote otherwise. So I don't know, man. This is a pretty messed up bilateral agreement. And the whole thing with the NDP wanted to put through a dental plan. And she had a point there. We didn't vote for that. So there's one more little bit there. Let's listen to that, and then we'll put an end to this.
Have comment on the deficit or the fiscal forecast that is ahead with this deal? What's your take on that?
We're as Conservatives, we are very, very concerned with the deficit, and the fact that now having an NDP Liberal government means the deficit will be even more out of control than it is. I think Canadians and Canadian businesses, Canadian job creators, Canadian families have to be looking at this and recognizing inflation. There is no hope of inflation getting under control. I know we had hoped as Conservatives we could encourage the Liberal government to maybe step back from their increased taxation that was going to happen on April 1st, even the increased carbon tax. We know that there's some beliefs around the carbon tax helping the environment. We have questions around that, but we at this point had hoped that maybe we could encourage yesterday's Liberal government to reduce taxes for Canadians. Now that we have an NDP Liberal government, I would say there is no hope of reduced taxes. There is no hope of seeing any control of the spending. It is, I think, a very dire situation for Canadians.
Last question, dernière question. Bergen, are we seeing movie that we've seen in the past. 1972, Pierre Trudeau also had a deal with the NDP for 2 years to maintain in power, and Mr. Trudeau is doing the same thing with the NDP. Is this back to the future?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was thinking even more of the coalition in Ontario and the NDP Liberal coalition and what happened to Ontario and the disaster that was. So we haven't seen quite as formal a signed agreement. I think this is very new and certainly new in recent history. So, the concerning part is we asked questions. Our former leader, Aaron O'Toole, was very clear saying there's going to be a coalition, and you will recall he was mocked and laughed at, and it will never happen. We've woken up this morning, we went to bed last night knowing this not only was possibly happening this morning, we've heard the announcement, we saw the Prime Minister stand up and say that they've been talking, they've had secret deals they weren't telling anyone about. No one knew they were doing this. In the midst of, we've got a war going on in Ukraine. We had the Emergencies Measures Act that was declared, backed by the NDP. One has to wonder, when did these talks start? What kind of agreements were made? What was the quid pro quo that was given? These are important questions that go to the very heart of our democracy. Democracy and openness has been replaced by backroom deals. And so this is certainly about fiscal challenges and the fear of what this will do to the economy of the country. But I believe it goes to the heart of our democracy. The Liberals and the NDP had and have an obligation to be honest and transparent and tell Canadians this is what they've been cooking up. And they didn't do that. They cannot be trusted. These parties cannot be trusted. Neither of these men can be trusted to do what's best for the country. So a lot of implications. We have a lot of work to do, and we're going to get to work doing that. Thanks very much.
All right, well, there you have it. About 20 videos ago, I had mentioned how, actually it was a lot more than that. It was like one of my first 20 videos. I had mentioned how Jagmeet Singh had met up with Justin Trudeau, and how they had come to an arrangement that as long as he didn't use the emergency powers on refugees or the First Nations people, that he would sign off on it. But to make sure that the First Nations, no matter what kind of protest they would do, it could not be used against them, and it could not have any kind of influence on refugee status individuals. And look at that, they've been doing even more deals in the back. So, I don't know. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? What do you guys think? I think we're screwed. I think what we're experiencing is, this is not even Canada anymore. I don't know what to call it. But I do know one thing. Nobody voted in an NDP Liberal majority government. Right? I don't know. Makutsura, too far gone media. Be safe out there. It's getting worse and worse. Stay sexy, Canada. Ow, ow.